Welcome to another episode of How to Cook a Goose. We're two best friends who met at our first job out of the college and we made careers in sports media. I'm Savanna. This is Will. So this weekend, I was talking to my grandmother, who is in her 80s, about my job and the TV part she gets. What I do outside of that does not connect. So I have to say, if I was a journalist, 10, 20 years ago, I'd write for a newspaper, but it's all online. Your job as a digital asset manager in the NBA existed when?
Great
10?
question.
Is 10 years even too generous?
So
When did people start having digital asset managers? Let's talk about it.
Okay, so yeah, the digital asset manager is a very new position in the sports world where we've only seen, I'm trying to think, the longest tenured asset manager that I know is with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I believe she's been there around 10 years, but I'm not sure that she did asset management the entire time. I think it's a role, not only the position, but also the software that goes with the position. It really started in film production. So it started with Universal. They've made a million movies. All the movies have all the raw footage. They need to keep an account of all of the, I don't know, I can imagine they keep all their takes, all their scenes. I can't even imagine all the scenes of a movie, but basically as a way to manage and process all the digital assets associated with a company, or in this circumstance, we're talking about a sports team. So think about all the media that gets created by one team, just one team. You've got what you see on social. You've got what you see in the arena. You've got what you see on signage. You've got what you see in emails. There's so many different products, digital products that you see, and it's video, it's photo, it's interactive. And so, every team needs a rhyme or reason for how they store, how they search for things, how they create these things. Because ultimately, if you try to create every single marketing asset that you make from scratch, you are not going to be able, that's going to be a nightmare. So
Inefficient.
Exactly. So the asset manager position is brought in to basically, number one, have an account of everything so that they themselves are a resource for where do things live? How do we find things? And that way, even if you don't know where something is, you can at least go to someone who does. Now, there's different philosophies of how you can.
Hold on. Take us back up.
Okay.
We're on an elevator. We're going to maybe the 7th floor. I say, hey, what's a digital asset manager?
I'm the person that knows where everything is from a media side. Photos, videos, raw footage. That's about it.
Got it. Okay.
That's the short and simple, but it's not a job that's it's a job that exists in the nitty gritty of everything.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain in a short way. Yeah.
Yeah. You bringing up movies kind of sent me down the path of I bet there have been asset managers, media asset managers. I'm sure it had different names over time, far longer than it has really been a position in sports. In fact, you and the asset manager in the company that I work at are the first I have ever personally worked with in a job. Now, I don't know if that's because I didn't cross paths with them or if because the position wasn't as prominent. I would go to say the position wasn't as prominent until we get to this point where you have these full-fledged media teams and content creators, and none of that is cataloged, which is crazy. So do you manage photo, video, and other? And if so, what's other?
So I would say the way I've seen it is it's different for every team. So as far as what is under my umbrella, currently it's photos and all the different places that photos get created. Now, different teams, and I've done asset management for multiple teams, different teams are structured differently. So one team may have a photography manager, and that person is the point person for all photos being captured. So if you're in the loop with that person, you can be in the loop with all of photography. If you work for a team that does not have a photography manager and different departments are kind of just doing whatever fulfilling their own needs from a photography standpoint. It's a little bit more difficult because you have to kind of corral all the different media assets that get, created. But in short, photo, video, and I would say like the project management stuff, you have the project managers, which that's its own role. That's kind of in a similar spot to the digital asset manager. It's like the project manager, the digital asset manager. People may not know what's the difference between the two, but they're very different.
So if, for example, say like you're an NFL team and one of your like legendary players is coming back, and let's even maybe make it a little bit more challenging. Like this is a player who maybe played in the 60s and 70s. There are photos of him. There's even video of him that's owned by the team. Does somebody put in a request from you to find it? Do you tell them where it is? How does that work?
So I would say in an example like that, it would be someone would say, hey, we need this really obscure request. Where can we get this? And I would either, in that circumstance, know where it is and pull it, with permission, of course. Or if we don't have it, reach out to different resources that I, as the asset manager, have with the league or with, there's AP, there's Getty, there's, if you're in the NFL, there's NFL Films. There's all these different resources you can go to find things. And as the asset manager, you're connected through all those avenues to, if you don't have it, you at least know someone that knows where it is.
Yes. I think that's really fascinating about the position as I've kind of gotten to know you in this role and then also gotten to know the asset manager that I work with, that it seems like it's people who really specialize in a couple of things. Obviously, organizing, because not only does your system have to make sense to you, it has to make sense to everybody else. Like filing, it's almost like how secretaries in a way used to do physical filing. You are doing filing for digital assets within a system, which is so fascinating. And there's programs for it.
1,000%. And there's multiple different programs and they serve multiple purposes. So it's a very complex thing. And I'm trying to give you the like short and dirty on it because you could really get far into the weeds. So I look at it in two ways. You have the MAM, the media asset management system, and then you have the DAM, the digital asset management system. Now, those two terms could be interchangeable, but the real meaning is the digital asset management, in my definition, is this is the source of truth for final products for the organization. And that could be photos, that could be final edited videos, that, and the photos that you're providing. It could be graphics, it could be graphics. If, they want, if that's kind of part of the scope of your job, then it could be graphics. The final products, the photos that are cropped and edited, are they watermarked? Whatever your brand guidelines say, like this is what a final product looks like from a digital standpoint. It's the source of truth for where you get all of that. The MAM, the media asset management platform, is the source of truth for everything that exists. Raw footage, your entire raw photography takes. You need to be able to access all of that stuff too, because if someone's going through the DAM and they say, hey, like, do you have any more shots from this event? Like there's only 100 pictures, but I need something more. You have to go to the MAM, which is basically like the behind the scenes, the back catalog. And you got to have, your organization and your things together there to be able to pull and source from.
Fascinating. I actually never realized that when I'm producing and editing videos, I am so more than almost anything am in the MAM of the organization or team that I work for. I had no clue that that's what there was a distinction in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, a DAM could simply just be a Dropbox folder. It could be a folder on a server at a location, like whatever, it's like wherever your final products go. And I refer to them as products because it's like photos, videos, could be graphics, it could be logos, it could be anything, like in any different format.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is like, well, let me ask you a question first. So, I got to think of the right way to ask this. Hold on, give me a second.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
I know. I had a thought and then I lost it. Okay. Basically, so what about all the things that were not shot digitally? So when things were on tape, VHS, I mean, we have some organizations that literally have footage that dates all the way back to being what would analog. Has
Yeah.
all that been converted? Do raw files live in the vault? Is there a vault?
It's a great question. I mean, I think this is to me like one of the more fun parts of the job. And you think about the digital asset manager, and really it's like knowing the organization of the files and doing the filing, as you were saying earlier. But honestly, I really look at it as like a historian because everything is so
Mm,
digital now. When you think about photography, you think about videography, you're really looking at the captured history of your team. So when you think about the legacy stuff, the historical stuff, again, every team is different. Some teams are going to say, we found, we've got an entire room full of like 35 millimeter film and tapes and whatnot. And usually only a portion have been digitized.
wow, a
Because
portion?
it's expensive. It's very expensive to digitize, to scan, film, especially when you think about, I'm trying to think like in the NFL days, it was a room that was just filing cabinets after filing cabinets of game film. And, to get it all scanned is not cheap. I was taking binders of photographs of historical NFL games to different film labs and saying, hey, can you give me a massive quote to scan thousands of images? And then from there, you still have to do the same process that you would for a normal digital image that would be captured today. You have to go through, you have to decide, is this worth keeping or is this not worth keeping? You have to add the metadata portion, which is what makes something searchable so that people can find it. You have to figure out how you're going to organize the file. So once you convert it to a digital file, then you have to do the entire digital process
Yeah,
over
the
again.
work's not done. It's actually
It's
just
not done.
started.
Yes, yes.
Interesting. You know what's fascinating to me is like we've fully stepped into the digital age, but to think that long-standing organizations who are powerhouses within professional sports are still in some ways playing catch up on their media from the decades of being analog is wild to consider. And also like a little worrisome because you're like, hey, we have to preserve this history essentially.
Yeah, and you have, I mean, especially when you really start to go back to the 60s, the 50s, those eras of like very primitive versions of these major sports leagues that we know now. The people shooting photography for these games was just like Bob and Joe down the street who like had a camera. It wasn't like this professional career thing that it is now. It's totally different. And so, you've got instances where, oh, like the early days of this specific franchise, like we had this shooter who came around and, shot photos of the team for years, but we don't have the rights to their footage because they were never actually an employee. And so then there was like, I've seen there be like disputes over families of old photographers trying to say, no, our family owns the rights to these images, not the team.
Really?
And it's just causing a lot of problems. And teams normally just don't want to deal with it. So it ends up being a major thing. But at the end of the day, can they prove the ownership? Like it would have to go to court. But yeah, I mean, it's just a whole. There's just a million rabbit holes every single where you look with this stuff.
That's wild. I mean, and it so varies by like league. Like obviously the NBA started in the 40s. Then you have the NFL, the 20s. Baseball's been around since the 1800s.
Yeah.
Like, you think about converting those photos, and most of those have already been converted and are preserved by historical sites like the Library of Congress. But at least for teams, especially, through the years and keeping track, I think it's so fascinating every now and again when we get a new photo of a big time athlete that suddenly surfaces that we've never seen before. It's like it's almost like that moment we would have never have known existed without the photo. That's really fascinating that so
Yep.
many teams are trying to catch up in their
Yeah.
film and
The
Oh my
digitization of
gosh.
all the legacy stuff. I mean, there are definitely teams out there that have none of it, that
None?
they just rely on whatever resources, like I said, they can get through the league or through Getty Images or AP Images or, whatever service provider is attached to the league. And teams will be licensing images of their own team because they don't own the rights to it.
Get
it's really
out.
fascinating. But it is really cool from the experience of being the asset manager. It is really cool because I remember when I was in the NFL and looking through the film photos and holding the strips up to the light and looking, and I'm just thinking of one specific example. I was like, oh my God, that's Walter Payton. And they're like, yeah, that's Walter Payton in there. Because like then you can look
On
through
film.
on film, like this is the film strip that shot Walter Payton running with the ball. And I'm like, I've never seen this photo before. Maybe it's been out there. Maybe it's not. Maybe no one's seen this photo before. You really don't even know.
Fascinating. That's so interesting. Especially when we start to think about, and we're mostly talking about professional men's sports, which are so much more established than women's. But like we've worked in professional women's sports that had zero asset management. And sometimes it honestly like makes my stomach hurt
Yeah,
when I think about the things that we shot or did digitally that is probably gone.
they're gone. It's most likely gone unless you could probably pull it from a platform that it got posted on.
Right.
But as far as like the raw footage, it's most likely gone. And ultimately, that is, I think, the major selling point of the role and the process is if we don't get someone in here to keep account of this, we are going to lose our history. If not, lose more history than we already have. Because
Mm,
I guarantee you, every single team has lost significant portions of their captured history, especially when you're thinking about teams. And you bring up the MLB. I mean, they play over 100 games in the MLB. You know how many
yeah.
images that is? I mean, when I was working in the NFL, I mean, in the early days, it's 14 game seasons, so it's not as bad. But when you're talking about 100 games in a season,
Yeah,
it's
162.
so much. Where do you start?
I don't know. I think that's something that, and so much of my reference point is working in pro women's sports that I mean, I think about this. The Pro Volleyball Federation is in their second year. The Love is in their first year. Like you really could get a lot of that right from the very beginning. I mean, even us at Athletes Unlimited, like softballs, this is going to be year 6. Year 1 of the AUSL, which excitingly, we have a full system
Yeah.
of it all. We've got our video logging system. We have everything where our photos live. We have a digital asset manager, and it's like it actually, I would venture to say, is rare that any league or team has ever started with the complete infrastructure in place that the AUSL will have in their inaugural season this summer for every single photo, video, and asset to make it to when we're playing year 50, year 60, year 70.
I fully agree. I mean, and there are still teams in the NFL, NBA. Like, not every team has an asset manager, so there are teams still doing without. I mean, I think for years the videographers, the editors, the asset management duties kind of just got naturally thrown to them because they're the ones that exist within that digital
Yeah.
space the most. So it's really up to them to keep it organized and keep account of things because they're the ones that are really dealing with it. It wouldn't be anybody else. And that is really where I saw the value in moving out of the video production space and into the asset management space because when I saw the listing for my first asset management job before I had even applied for it, I really thought and I was like, this is the position I wish that I had had in every single one of the jobs I've ever had. And it is
Really?
hilarious. Absolutely. Because it is hilarious to go back and I have like old hard drives just stacked over here. And I go through my old folders and they're not organized. And it drives me insane. I'm like, I don't know how I used to work like this. It's one of those things that it's habit based. And a lot of my job is trying to bring those good habits to the people that are on the teams that I'm working for. Say, hey, just get in the habit of doing things like this. So that way, when we need them, however long in the future, it's not a nightmare to find it.
Wow. That is so interesting, especially as someone who made the transition from being on the more like creation and creative side. I feel like you're still very embedded in creative, and that's probably why it's fulfilling. But to take a step back from being the like physical doer is kind of how I would describe it into a management role.
Yeah, and the selling point that I give to anyone that I've tried to hire part-time to come in and do like logging or shadowing on like an entry level type of position, I say this is a new avenue for you as someone who wants to work in the creative space. If you're flexible and you're willing to kind of play different roles, if you're multifaceted, which I think we're seeing a lot of multifaceted creators that do photo and video and design and other things. If you have a knack like that, then I think it's perfect for you because it's a way to navigate up the kind of corporate structure of working in sports much easier than if you were, let's say, a videographer. I mean, I was a videographer, and what's the highest you can go being a videographer? Senior videographer? Maybe you're one of the 1% that makes it to what creative director. Usually creative directors come from the graphic design side, but let's say you make it anyways, or video director. Beyond there, it's almost like you're hitting a ceiling, but being on the asset management side, touching multiple legs of the business, and then also touching the stakeholders that are using the assets, people that use photos, the sales teams, the corporate partnerships teams, you are so much further branched out. And I think it's a role like that that is going to find success in being promoted and escalating up the corporate ladder. So it's just, it's opportunity. And I think anyone who has that multifaceted creative skill set should consider it because it's opportunity.
Mm, interesting. And again, kind of just a job that didn't really exist. Definitely know that in, working in production and TV and broadcasting, like never was it presented as a career path. In the production track at the University of Florida, was asset management ever even mentioned?
No. And you bring this up and it reminds me, I was in the 5th grade. I actually never forgot this. It is so funny because it became my reality. I was in 5th grade. My 5th grade teacher told me, and it was something I did not understand at the time. There are a lot of you in this room that will have jobs when you're my age that don't exist right now. And that made no sense to me because you can't even conceive of what you can't conceive of, right? Like if I told you, Savannah, you're going to have a job in 15 years that doesn't exist right now. Like you don't know how to feel about that because it doesn't
Yeah.
exist. And, for me to move into the asset management role, I reflected on that and was like, wow, like it was spot on. I'm in a role now that didn't exist. And even when I was in school, and I'm not that far removed from college, it didn't exist. There's no class to teach you about this. It was really something that I just kind of found.
Gosh, and I so relate to that too. Not so much in the position because reporters and journalists and have always, existed. Obviously, team reporters is a more recent concept in the past like 10 or so years. And then obviously being a digital reporter or a reporter in a digital space is new. But the big one that I think about a lot is I could have never imagined I would be the reporter for the first year of a traditional pro softball league because I mean there was one, but the one that I started in is defunct and didn't make it. And this one, like I really believe is gonna make it. But I couldn't have even envisioned for myself, hey, you're gonna carve out a large part of your early career, maybe your whole career in professional softball. I was like, whatever. There's no way. Like it wasn't even the
Yeah.
Olympics when I graduated college.
Yeah.
Was that even an Olympic sport?
We're pioneers in a lot of ways,
It's
and I
weird.
think that is something that is just really something worth being proud of because there's no playbook for how to do it. There's no, and for me, I reached out to people that have been in the asset management space for longer than I have been to seek that advice. But it's funny, even a lot of them are like, you really just got to figure it out for yourself. Like, one solution, especially with the asset management stuff, and I'm sure it's the same way with different teams and reporters and whatnot, it's different everywhere you look. Every team, every league is different. None of them are built the same, and every circumstance is pretty unique. So
Yeah, man. Well, when it comes to AUSL news, huge news for the league. Signed Maya Brady. Tom Brady's niece, played at UCLA, three-time All-American, two-time Pac-12 Player of the Year. That was a huge get, which I think in it of itself is huge, but I don't know if you saw this, Will. Like almost any time I've worked a lot in pro softball, the news comes from the team or league itself. And today, Jeff Passan, the ESPN MLB reporter, arguably kind of like the shams of the MLB, broke the news, wrote the article on ESPN, tweeted it out. That was humongous
Maya
for
Brady was
softball.
trending on Twitter for sure. It was definitely like,
You
wow.
saw it?
Yeah, I saw her name trending, and then when I clicked on it, yeah, I got to see the news. It's a big deal, but you have to give me a little bit more lore to who she is and what this really means for AUSL. Like really contextualize it.
Yeah, I feel like what's interesting about this signing and kind of where pro softball is at is right now the league has athletes who have signed and as well as like declared themselves eligible for the draft. And I would say sitting right now, pretty much every elite top level pro softball player in the world is going to be involved in the AUSL. Missing a couple for different reasons, some that I'm sure are personal, others having to do with some other contractual obligations. I would expect by year 2, year 3, the world's best players are all in this league, which has not always been the case because in pro softball, a lot of times players have left the United States and gone to play in Japan, who actually has one of the most incredible leagues in the world, and they pay very competitively. So players have left, choose not to play in the U.S., either because the league didn't pay well, not our league, former leagues. It was too strenuous. They didn't like the environment or the circumstances, rightfully so. So they go play in Japan. And they'd make a living playing in Japan, especially pitchers. And so Maya Brady graduated in 2024. She plays with Team USA, played with them over the summer, but didn't play in a pro league for the past year. So U.S. fans have not seen her on home soil since she finished at the Women's College World Series in 2024. She's incredibly athletic and gifted. And then kind of when you add on being at a premier, school like UCLA, being Tom Brady's niece, all that comes with that. I mean, she's Maya Brady to me and also Tom Brady's niece, not the other way around. And she's somebody that was really recruited and scouted for years. I mean, we interviewed her when she was 16, playing for the Batbusters in a tournament that you and I were covering, a youth softball tournament. And I remember being told, make sure you interview her by the end of the day. We got to have interviews with her. And I was like, okay, So anyway, that's kind of the scope. But man, to get her to sign and then add on the layer of Jeff Passan, an extremely credible with a humongous audience, announced it. It's a moment that pro softball doesn't get quite often, to where we step out of our little bubble and step into the larger sports space. Huge. It was a huge day.
Definitely bringing a level of like credibility whenever you have that big name, especially the name Brady. You hear it and people are like, they want to see it. They want to see what's up with it. And I think it's a great opportunity for Athletes Unlimited to really grow the brand with AUSL. Something you brought up earlier, I think is really interesting to cover is kind of like, you mentioned leagues in the past that haven't exactly been successful and been sustained. And AUSL being different, and the main reason having to do with your ability to make an income here in the States, and having with past leagues in the States, players were forced just to make a living. They had to go overseas in the off season and continue to play nonstop. I think you hear a little bit about players going overseas in the basketball world, but usually it's like you go overseas because you can't make it in the league in the States, where this is totally different. And
totally different.
People understand that about pro softball. So I don't know if you want to give some more color there.
Yeah. So I know players that in former leagues signed a 3-month contract to play a pro season for $5,000.
Wow.
$5,000 for 3 months of work. And that's it. And
As an athlete.
As an athlete, without health benefits, without a lot of support, sometimes without real training staffs, the whole nine. You could go in Japan, and right now it's the Japan Diamond League. It's heavily developed. It's massive, by the way. They have multiple teams. I think they have 12 teams now, could be higher. Yeah, it's huge. Major corporate sponsorships. One of the best teams there is like the Toyota team, the Toyota Red Terriers. And so players, a lot of times pitchers, they make the most money. And we're talking breaking 6 figures at times or up there. Yeah.
And how long is their season?
It's pretty long. I want to say it runs from, it can run through the summer all the way to November. I know they just had their championships in November.
So it's probably like 5 to 7 months in that general range.
Yeah.
To make 6 figures in that amount of time, and then have, either the off season to relax, recover, train, or do something else and earn more. It's a no-brainer.
Right. And pro softball players still, we're not there yet, but it's right there to where you won't have to be a coach or give lessons or a real estate agent or a nurse or a teacher on the side
or whatever.
Yeah. Literally, of being a pro softball player. So pro softball is about to enter into a space that it's never had before this summer. And I'm so excited because Jenny Finch said this at a conference we were at last month. And she just said, it's so exciting because everybody is rowing in the same direction. And when you're able to get momentum like that, it is so hard to stop it. And I've worked in pro softball now since 2018, and it's never quite felt like this. The buzz is there, the excitement is there. We got a lot of work to do, but it starts with signing top players, having incredible coaches and GMs, and then being led by somebody like Kim Ng, the former GM of the Marlins, who's spearheading this thing. I mean, I think it's set up to succeed. I'm so excited.
I don't even really know what to ask about what's next, or it's just really wild to because I started in pro softball. That was the first time I could ever say I photographed or filmed professional sports was professional softball. And it didn't exactly feel that way because in a lot of ways the fan base wasn't there. You could feel the players didn't have the support to really feel like they were professional athletes. I mean, the TV coverage wasn't there. They were, by all points of the definition, professional athletes, but you were missing that stage that feels like American pro sports, where the AUSL is really I even thought before the AUSL, with just AU softball in general, I felt like they did a really good job of bringing that legitimate American professional sports energy to the sport of softball, which we had never seen. And so it really just seems like it's going to be up from there with AUSL.
Yeah, it's exciting. And, there's a lot of things that play into it. Softball being out of the Olympics has been a huge factor. When you don't have that Olympic stamp, it hurts top down all the way to grassroots because the funding isn't there. There's such a huge impact that being an Olympic sport has, especially when you're still developing at the pro level. But what's really fascinating is when Jeff Passan tweeted about us today, and now I want to know exactly how many Twitter followers he has. Hold on. Jeff Passan. Where's he at? Okay. So Jeff Passan tweets out to his 1.2 million followers today about Maya Brady signing. And watching the way that engagement and views ticker just blew up was so exciting. But if you go and read those replies, it is clear we've still got a long way to go.
What do you mean? What is what are people basically saying? We don't care. Who is she?
We don't care. Never heard of her. Go back to tweeting about baseball. Jeff, don't make me mute you. And I will say it's not as bad as I continue to sometimes see the comments and replies section on women's sports. It was nice to see some people going, oh, cool, or like interested to see, or like, oh, how neat, like Brady, last name, I recognize that name. Like,
Yeah.
that was encouraging. But of the, let's see, of the 107 replies, at least 50% are negative, if not more, definitely more.
It's so tough because I really don't think that is a good way to measure.
No.
You know, when you think about positive or negative engagement in the social media world, all engagement is good engagement from like a number standpoint. But really, like, how many people, when you feel negatively about something, you're much more compelled to like leave a comment and engage
True.
and express your negativity versus if you saw that you're like, oh, like that's super cool and neat. I don't feel like you're as compelled to kind of comment. I think that's like this echo chamber of negativity. I feel like we kind of get with social media, especially surrounding sports.
Yeah. You know what? Here we go. 107 replies, however those go, 2.2K likes, and 225 retweets. So you're right. You're right.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I mean, it's important and we know why it's important, you know? I mean, I'm not someone that grew up a big baseball fan or softball fan, to be honest, but we both went to the University of Florida where, you know, the Gators had a premier baseball team and a premier softball team. And I don't know. I really felt this could be a hot take, so don't crucify me. Softball is a better product. It's a better product.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I'm
like,
gonna say it.
not really. I don't really feel like that's an argument anymore. And this is coming from someone who absolutely diehard loves both. Loves both. God, baseball was like one of the first sports I really like fell in love with. My grandfather played Major League Baseball. I love it. I would say product wise though, yeah, softball is definitely, easier to consume. It's faster, more things happen. It's 7 innings versus 9. I think the pitching can be a little bit more dynamic. The players tend to show more emotion, have bigger personalities. Yeah, I think they're very different products. And like when you think about like obviously like baseball has like nostalgia as being like America's pastime and things like that, where softball carves out its space is like truly incredible entertainment. Just such good entertainment. I mean, there's a reason that the TV ratings of the Women's College World Series and college softball in general outdoes college baseball, which is not a knock to baseball. They're just different.
It's totally different. It's totally
very different.
Because I would say, like, when I think about the World Series of baseball, baseball at the highest stakes, there is nothing more like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so intense and just that tension of, the space in between each pitch is just incredible. But softball, I would say, when it comes to like the regular season and watching it regularly, I feel like it's easier to enjoy because I think if I'm watching, let's just say 2 games that for all intents and purposes don't really matter, the stakes aren't high. I think softball is still a better like entertainment experience.
Yeah.
As a fan.
And in person, you are so much closer. Like you think about baseball backstops and the way the stadiums are made. When there are softball stadiums in college that are built for you to feel so close. So it definitely is a lot more like intimate in that way as well. Of just the game is very close to you. The field is smaller. The base path is smaller. So like everything is tight, which I think leads you to being more entertained and feeling closer to the game, which I like that too.
I think it's good. And I really think with AUSL, you really have an opportunity with it being so new and so, I don't want to say small because I don't want to like kind of marginalize what's going on because it's very important, but just so fresh and so new. The players have so much enthusiasm. And it's not like, the 100-year-old league of baseball where you can kind of get these high-paid athletes. They don't want to do media. They don't want to participate. They're too cool. But, in the AUSL, you've got a bunch of enthusiastic women that are, like, excited for the league. You're going to get great content out of them. And I'm really curious to see personality-wise, like, who's going to captivate the audience
totally
most.
Yeah, I mean, you think about why people love the WNBA. Not only is it great basketball, but people fall in love with those athletes and they also love to hate some of those athletes in a non-toxic way. Like,
Yeah.
It is fun.
You need that, though.
You need it. Villains are good. Villains are so necessary in women's sports. But what's really exciting about softball, what, I was talking to Haley McClenny today, the Olympian from Alabama, and she said, nobody is bigger than the game. Nobody is bigger than softball. And where we're at right now, really, it especially feels that way, that like everybody's very much on mission. And I'm excited for when these athletes don't have to carry so much, because I do think they have to carry a lot. Yeah. The growth of their sport, their image, what it means to be a softball player, growing the game, like that is heavy. Men's athletes don't think about that stuff.
They're not even a concept of a thought.
No, men's athletes don't really have to be anybody's role model if they don't want to. But female athletes are so expected to be everything all at once. Yeah. But as you said, there is a lot riding on this, and I think it lends itself to be incredibly meaningful and entertaining.
I agree. I think the one thing I would say that we have started to get with women's sports, which I think is absolutely the direction it really needs, is the just highly competitive matchups against one another, rivalries. Before the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry, there wasn't a premier rivalry in women's sports. And, as toxic as sports fans can be, that rivalry put attention on women's sports like nothing else. And with attention comes money, comes opportunity, comes more opportunities for the players, bigger paychecks, growth of the game. And I feel like that's what I really hope we get to see on the softball side of things.
Me too. Because those rivalries are so fun in college, and I'm ready for them to. And we had some when we worked in the NPF. There were rivalries, but only like a small handful of people were tuned into them and cared.
Yeah,
but for it to be bigger scale, you did. Yeah. So, it's exciting.
There kind of is a big responsibility on the storytelling department, your department, of communicating these stories, because ultimately, it's the basis of what we do. Like, the stories are what make people care. The sport is what keeps you glued to the TV, but the stories are what capture, your heart. Like, I don't know what's the story? Is it Maya Brady?
Oh gosh, in year one, I don't think it's going to be one specific player. I would expect the year one to be about a lot of first and about growing the audience. I think the story in year one is going to be about growing the fan base and what it takes to do that, and what it takes to convert the college softball fan to the pro softball fan. I think that's what it's going to be about. And the side part is the story, I think, of this season are the people involved. I mean, these are the GOATs. And this isn't like the GOATs, that word that we really like to throw around really loosely.
The GOAT!
No, this is Lisa Fernandez and Jenny Finch and Natasha Watley and Kat Osterman and Kim Ng, and Jessica Mendoza. Come on now. Yep.
I've known every name you've said.
These are they're all on this. We're all on this team. They're all on their different teams, coaching and general managers and advising. But we're all on softball's team right now, all together. And we've got the support and the media attention and the broadcast deals and the players for it to be a huge year one. I'm so excited. You're getting me fired up, but it's only January.
It really is exciting. I'm wondering, and maybe you can or can't say, is there anything that AUSL is going to do that maybe is not conventional to like a typical sports league or broadcast or whatnot? I remember when the XFL had its return a few years back, something that they did I found to be I was like, every sports league needs to do this. Was the officials were all mic'd up, and whenever they would discuss a call, you would get to go into the officials' huddle and hear them kind of say, okay, as you can see right here, his foot is in bounds, this, that, and the other, whatever their discussions are. And I was like, wow, no one's ever done this before. Is there anything like that you kind of expect AU to do?
I'll give you two. I'll say AU's broadcasts have some of the craziest level of access to hearing the game ever. They have a live mic'd up player every game who talks to the booth. Then they also have a player who's mic'd and recorded, who they cut clips of to post throughout, not only post on social media, but play on the broadcast. So there's that twofold. I will say the most unconventional thing about the AUSL in year one, management-wise, is that these teams are individual franchises who are not yet owned by individual people, businesses, and groups, because the league's backing went in year one, because Athletes Unlimited has so much been about the athlete experience and putting them first, of we're going to do this ourselves in year one, and then people can come in to be a part of it as supporters financially. That is incredibly unique that it didn't go out to the highest bidder.
Right.
That there's going to be a requirement that you have to be able to provide a certain level of player care and money up front and support, because the last thing that I would ever expect Athletes Unlimited to do is let somebody come in who can't back up what they said they were going to do, and players have a bad experience. And that is so unique in women's sports, especially pro softball, where people come running saying they want to own a team or be a partial owner or buy this, and then they get the check and they go, oh, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then they are no longer.
All the athletes suffer, the league suffers, it falls apart.
Just last year, athletes in pro softball didn't get paid. Last year, 2024, there are athletes who played on a professional team, not associated with Athletes Unlimited here in the United States. They played games, they showed up and worked, and they did not get their contracts fulfilled.
I don't know.
That ain't happening.
Lawsuit associated with that. So there are 4 teams with the AUSL,
four
correct?
Teams.
And these 4 teams will at some point be
attached to cities.
And attached to cities and purchased as franchises under AU, but not yet.
Not yet.
Is there any type of timeline associated with when they expect that to happen? Or is it kind of like we're feeling it out and we're going to see if there's not the right buyer, then we ain't selling?
I don't know that part. That's above my pay grade.
I'm just curious personally.
Yeah.
It's very
exciting.
The territory is so new and the formatting is so unconventional that it really is how are they running this? What is the plan? And I'm not asking that in a what are they thinking type of way. It's just really fascinating because it's never been done like this before. And anytime something new happens in this type of way, it's always you never know what could happen.
I think Athletes Unlimited, since I've worked there since the beginning, has been really big on long-term goals, long-term partnerships. Every conversation has been about 5-10 years out, which I'm very grateful for. But what's interesting about this is we kind of took a book out of the PLL's model, the Premier Lacrosse League, that their first year they didn't do cities, they traveled across the country on a tour, and the intent behind that was to grow the fan base. So that's what we're going to do this summer. Catch me in just about every
the tour
from the east to west coast on this tour,
the Savanna Collins tour.
Yeah, for real. My frequent flyer miles are going to be crazy this summer, but it's exciting because so much better to intentionally pick a city and location and then go from there to create longevity. But there's always going to be things that change, especially at the beginning. We have, teams consistently right now in the MLB who have changed cities. It happens.
Yeah, it always happens. And I think, like you said, if you put all 4 of those teams in, you picked 4 cities, and who knows what cities they would even pick. The fan base, you have to grow that. You have to grow the nationwide interest for then people to be please bring a city like we see in the NBA. Please bring in a team to our city. And I feel like that, as far as the NBA goes, I could really see that happening soon.
Really? See, that's
Oh
how I
yeah.
feel about the W fans. Like, will foam at the mouth for a team. Then
Right.
again, they only have 12. So, I mean, I don't have a team here in Florida. I would love to have a team.
Yeah, I really think once LeBron hangs it up, I think he's gonna say, "All right, I want a team and I want it in Vegas."
Really?
Or I feel like that's where he wants to go.
Hmm.
I don't exactly have a whole lot to back it up. It's just I
Just a feeling.
it's a feeling. I feel like that's where he wants to go. I feel like ownership is the avenue he wants. I mean, you see how involved he is in the teams that he does play
Yes.
for, and how involved he wants to be on all the decision making from personnel, coaching, and whatnot. I can't see him not wanting to be on the ownership side and make those decisions.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah,
the money, I'll tell you
totally.
that. It's not like he's, coming up short on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Magic does. Magic does
Exactly.
that with the Sparks.
Oh yeah. So I wonder if now with Maya's involvement in AU, you think is Tom Brady going to come in and write the
I
check?
wonder that. Don't you just wonder? I just love if he came to a game.
Yeah, right. I don't
That
feel
would
like
be
it's outside
crazy.
the realm of possibility,
No.
especially that
He
time of
went to
year
her,
that the games are going to be.
yeah, he went to her games at UCLA too. It's
Just
yeah,
saying.
that's gonna be crazy. It's
It
gonna
really
be
will be.
crazy.
It really will be. It's an exciting time for softball. I
It
love
is like it's our time, which is exciting. It's our time. Like it's our turn. I'm ready. But
What's next? What comes after softball in the United States, whether it be women's sports or just what's the next sport you think that's in line?
ooh, good question.
Is it
Volleyball's
volleyball?
volleyball's got a lot going on right now. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Volleyball space is crowded. Um, maybe I mean lacrosse. The new lacrosse league will be in their first year this year.
Mm. See, as someone who grew up in Florida, it was just football. Like lacrosse, my high school didn't have a lacrosse team.
Mine either. Fine. I literally my first lacrosse game at AU.
Yeah, right. I don't know the rules to lacrosse. I mean, I know it's ball in the net, but beyond that, I couldn't give it to you.
Yeah. No, I think next thing for women's sports is just the established leagues to get bigger and better, including the W. The W has a way to go. They need more teams. They need to expand. Like that's next, I think.
Yeah, the W is definitely, and it's just so funny that we call it the W. But
I
everyone
know.
knows what you mean. Everyone knows what you mean when you say it. I mean, yeah, Caitlin
I
and
never
Angel,
thought that being funny. The W.
the W. It's cool. It's
It
cool.
is cool.
It fits. No other team has that, or no other league. Sorry, has that. I don't think
No, you're so right. I'd never noticed that.
it's very unique. It's very unique.
I have never been more excited for anything like I am for this draft. So here's the tea. So the coaches and GMs are getting together and making their selections, and the draft order rotates. It goes one, two, three, four, two,
Three,
three, four,
two.
one, three,
Oh,
four, one, two, four, one, two, three. Okay.
wow.
Okay. Yes, they have no positional requirements. By opening day, they have to have 5 pitchers. That's it. They are only drafting 12 players at the draft, 80, which comes out to 48 roster spots at the draft. 81 players have declared themselves eligible.
So half aren't getting drafted.
Half aren't getting drafted. Now, some may be picked up in the free agency period,
Yeah.
maybe. Or these coaches and GMs are going to wait until the college draft and fill out their roster from the top NCAA talent that graduates this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is intense. How do
This
people
is,
not know about this?
I mean, you've seen me posting more than I've ever posted about this.
You've been posting, but I feel like the structure of that is like it wasn't ever. I've never seen any content where it was explained to me like I'm five, which I feel like is what I need. Maybe that's what I personally need.
Okay, what if we do a little segment right now?
The
Will,
name of that segment is explain the AUSL draft to me like I'm five.
yes, let me put you on. Okay? Franchises are going to be built player by player. Wednesday at 8 o'clock on the ESPN app or on the AUSL YouTube. Never in recent years have we seen this done in softball. And it's going to be pick by pick.
We've never seen anything like this.
It's wild.
So this is not like a traditional athletes unlimited draft where there was a season and the teams would redraft and there's captains and they redraft every week. This isn't that at all. These are 4 brand new franchises.
Yes.
That don't have a location yet, that are building their permanent roster similar to any other professional sports team.
Yes, pick by pick. So the coaches and GMs are going to get together. And they have, for the AUSL's first season, each team has 16 roster slots. At the draft, they're picking 12. No positional requirements. The only thing is by opening day, they have to have 5 pitchers.
So so you draft 12. You could then, if you wanted to, pick up some undrafted free agents, I suppose.
Yes, you can go through like a free agency process, or you can wait till the college draft and fill out your roster from the top NCAA talent that's going to finish their college eligibility this year. So you could take that risk or bank on who you are really sold on in the college space, or you can fill them out with free agents. But literally on Wednesday night, these 4 teams are going to go through the picks, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1, 2. So it rotates. So everybody makes the first pick of each round. And mind you, there's 81 players declared eligible. There are only 48 spots at the draft.
Well, there's only what's 16 times 4? There's not even 82 total spots that can be filled. So you're telling me these are, for the most part, the top 80 or so players, softball players in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are some of them that are not going to be on a roster and not going to play in the AU.
I know. Yeah. We'll get there. Like kind of the same. It's the same predicament that the W is always in. The talent in women's basketball is bigger than the roster spots now. Like the 144, for a while is what it was. There's more than 144. There is definitely more than the 48 that are going to get drafted, and then the 16 per each team. And we'll get there. The teams will expand. There'll be more. But for right now, these are the most coveted spots in softball, is to make one of these 4 teams.
And I'm sure there's going to be no love lost, because you've got to fill your roster with the best players. Like, softball is a very tight-knit community. I can't imagine that some people are going to feel a type of way if they don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I think I don't envy those coaches and GMs making those selections and having to build out a team in this way. Like, you think about all the conversation about the NFL draft. Those teams are just filling gaps. These teams are literally being created. That's a very different level of stress. So I am so excited, because these will be the teams. Obviously, there might be some changes in the additions and maybe some trades, but like, these are the 4 teams that are going to compete for the inaugural championship this summer.
Who has the first pick?
The Bandits. The legendary franchise got the first pick by lottery. And that's
it's the same Bandits from Chicago?
So not tied to Chicago, but same logo, redone, bought the rights. Obviously, we're going to be playing in that stadium at Parkway Bank Sports Complex. But it's Stacey Newman, who won the championship in Chicago in 2018. And then their GM is Jenny Dalton Hill, who was a legend in the college space and played pro baseball. So, they had the first pick.
That's amazing. But honestly, it makes sense. The Legacy Bandits name.
But it was random. It was random. The draft order was random. Yeah.
So who is like, is there a, sometimes you see the NFL draft, it's like, oh, everyone knows so-and-so's going first overall. Is it kind of clear cut, or do people have no idea who's about to get picked?
No idea. I came out with my mock draft yesterday, and I have pitchers going in round 1, maybe with one offensive exception. I think the first pick, I would really wager that the first pick is a pitcher, no matter what.
Right.
I just can't see it being any different, because if you look at our old If you look at our Athletes Unlimited drafts, those are almost always pitchers in the first round, even the second round too. So I don't think that's going to change. That's something you don't want to risk building a team. Who, though? I've seen a lot of different people have a lot of different opinions who they think the first pick should be.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how can we see this? How can we watch this? When is this?
8 p.m. Eastern on the ESPN app. 8 p.m. Eastern on the ESPN app or the AUSL YouTube. It's going to be live.
Wednesday, January 29th.
Yep. 8 p.m.
Wow. I'm psyched. I'm
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I have literally never been so excited about something related to the softball, maybe ever. Like, this is just, it's going to be eye-opening. It's going to be crazy.
Is this set to be one of the biggest moments in pro softball history?
I don't think it's necessarily the biggest moment, like press-wise, or maybe it will be. I don't know. I think this will be the biggest moment because this is where the history starts. These are the first teams. These are the first players. There will never, ever be other firsts. And that, I think, is why it's a huge moment.
Wow. I'm excited. I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not even familiar with the players, but I'm going to be like,
ah! Yeah, so next week, special edition of How to Cook a Goose, AUSL draft recap and reactions.
I'm going to have to do some research between now and then and figure out.
Let me put my glasses on really quick.
Yeah, let me
get my notepad out.
Google's real quick. Gotta write some names down.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Tune in.